Hi, George. Welcome to the COCM podcast. So glad that you're here today with us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I was honored to be asked to participate.
Wonderful. Well, why don't we get started? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you came to Green River and what your role is there.
Sure. Uh, it's been 15 years that I've been at the college, last December, and I came to the college from the YMCA. I did 23 years in the YMCA in Spokane and Seattle, and then had this great opportunity to come to Green River. It was sort of magical in that all the things that I love to do, work with donors and volunteers, and be involved in an important mission, and a lot of the things that I didn't necessarily like about my job otherwise suddenly disappeared. So, and coming to the college was just an opportunity to do a lot of favorite things. I didn't know a lot about the community and technical college mission until I got here, and since then just have absolutely fallen in love with our role in the community to bring higher ed into a community, seeing our students come to us and be just on fire and ready to change their lives. It's just absolutely amazing. And then being in a community of folks who are really wrapped around this idea that education is transformational, it just makes coming to work every day really a pleasure.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think all of higher education has that power to be transformative, but really in the community college and vocational space, you really see the power of that really quickly. I think it's really special place.
Yeah, you sure do. Students who come to us, directly out of high school, they're oftentimes, very driven and are on their way through. And then we have students who are coming back to us who may have been out of education for many years and have noticed that they want to do something a little bit different with their life, or they're at a place where I've gone as far as I can go, and I think there's more out there for me, and they come and they find their path through the college and go off and just do amazing things.
That's wonderful. So let's talk a little bit more about the Green River story. What
Mhm.
about it do you think draws prospective students there?
Well, I'll start off with we have an amazing staff and faculty. You provided, and not surprisingly, an amazing education. I I look at the quality of our instructors and how much they care about teaching, how much they care about the craft of teaching and their subject matter area, and then how much they are absolutely welded to the well-being of their students. I've seen just many stories of faculty and staff members going way above and beyond to help a student solve a problem on campus, or for that matter, get involved in solving a problem that's happening in their life. Could be, um, running into a money issue, or many other roadblocks that students run into. And I see the college really interested in helping students get to a different place. I am, you know, Green River is working really hard on being a student-ready college. It's perfectly appropriate for our four-year and regional colleges to expect students to do college level work on day one. But that's not our mission. Our mission is to meet that student right where they are as they come to us, whether they've been out of the classroom for 20 years, or they're just coming from high school, or they're a running start student, or for that matter, they're coming from overseas to come to Green River. It's our job to meet them where they are and then help them find their way through Green River College. And I see Green River working very hard to be that college, to be that student ready college. And if we had to boil it down, uh, I think that being ready for students is sort of the, if you will, the secret sauce for Green River. Um, we're not there every day, but I see the college really making every effort to be that college.
Yeah. In my time at Green River, I remember one of the things that I always thought was so special about the school is in other places, we would tend to get referrals about issues that students were having in housing, mostly from the student affairs folks. And at
Hmm.
Green River, we would get it from professors and we would get it from somebody at dining services. And it was just really interesting how wide that net was and how invested everybody there was in student success and resolving student issues.
Yeah, in many parts of campus, there's really a sense that if the student is putting full effort into this, then we need to figure out how to get them over the finish line, and that we're not going to let you fail. Let's figure out how do we, if it's an academic issue, how do we help there? If it's an issue with emergency funding or scholarships or financial aid, let's get you over the finish line, and I think that's special.
I definitely agree. So housing came to Green River in 2004, and
Hmm.
COCM joined the partnership there shortly shortly after the main development process started. Um, I know you joined a few years later. What do you remember about working with COCM in the early years of the management partnership?
Well, when we first came to when I first came to Green River, I think not Capstone, but the college and the foundation, I think we had kind of a failed strategy that was okay. Student housing was going to happen over here, and campus was going to happen over there, and there was
Right.
um, there was not a ton of integration going on, and I know that you and Deb Casey, for that matter, the president at the time, Rich Rutkowski, and Cindy Rapier were thinking, okay, this is not working. And we have got to figure out
Right.
how to integrate student housing into into Green River. There's three partners here with college and particularly international programs, the foundation and Capstone, and we have to do a better job of figuring out how to work together and integrate it. Just because the students walk across the street, they suddenly don't become Green River students, right? And when they come
Right.
across the street to go to
Right.
college, they're not suddenly residents at CCA. So we're that to me was something that was an obvious. And again, this was it was set. I feel like it was set up that way on purpose to say, okay, we'll keep student housing out of the campus's hair, so to speak. And
Right.
okay, that's a great starting point, but it wasn't one that was going to advantage either Green River students or CCA residents. And
Right.
I'm glad we have moved away from that pretty dramatically over time, for sure. Um,
Yeah.
so that I think that's really the biggest thing is the partners really just deciding we're going to be more of a kind of a big happy family, with our different things and see what we can each bring to the table. And that has I think that has borne a lot of upside over the course of the last 15 years.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think, when these projects start with developers and finance people, I mean, they're great at what they do, but they don't understand how to build that partnership and to build the kind of connected safety net that these students need and frankly, these housing projects need to be successful. And so I'm glad that we were all able to come together and put that in place. So that really covered the early years of the partnership. How has the
Hmm.
partnership evolved over the last few years?
I have said this, I think, many times, but one of the things I've really enjoyed about working with Capstone is Capstone is truly a learning organization. And I've seen our relationship evolve over time in a couple of different ways. You've always been really strong financial managers. That and of course, when there's so much kind of risk and money sitting on the table, that's critically important. There's never been any surprises with the finances, which I appreciate a lot. So that's a good place to start, right? Um, but I've noticed that over time that there's been I think a sense that we sort of know what personalities are going to work at Green River, and so we've gotten I think just amazing folks who've been in that general manager role over the course of the years. I've enjoyed working with you and with Corey. That was for the bulk of the time. It's been the two of you. Becky's joined up here just recently, but I've always felt like I had a really strong partner there. I remember you and Corey coming out when we ran into either transitions or, golly, when during the pandemic when Phil got so short on staff. It was Capstone has been out to help make sure that things continue on. And I just appreciate that commitment to the project and making sure that that the resident and kind of the resident life experience is where it needs to be. So just really kind of both feet in commitment is something I've really appreciated over time. That I and it's been again, no matter who's been our key person over here or who's been their direct supervisor, never for a moment doubted that we had your attention. And that's always felt, you know, really good. And I sort of, Phil and I, working here on campus, really enjoy working with him. I appreciate his enthusiasm and his willingness to learn. And I am impressed with him going back and getting his doctorate and getting that knocked out. So that was, and also being a part of that. So being able to be sort of part of his professional growth as well as, working together to make sure um, making sure the project's working well. And another piece that I appreciate, when prior to the pandemic, we were thinking about in the LLC board and then with all of you, what happens if we had a major upset internationally with, China or with another large partner, and suddenly there was a big decrease in the number of international students available to be housed at Green River. And there was movement over time to say, okay, well, what would we do? And there was time spent thinking about, okay, well, we have a domestic student population, we have athletes, we have all of those. And uh, when the pandemic came, it was a different international upstep, but when the pandemic came and we sent home 60%, 70% of our student population or resident population, we weren't starting from zero. Uh, Phil was able to, you know, adjust at that point because we'd done the what if conversation, and it's I think made all the difference in us getting through the pandemic and managing to keep the project in pretty healthy financial uh, condition. If you or the team were not willing to go and do the what if oh, for goodness sakes, exercise, I think we could have been surprised by the pandemic and not been ready.
Right.
And I feel like we were. No one, no one anticipated a pandemic, but we were anticipating what if there was a major upset, what would we do? And because of that thought work that went in before, prior to the pandemic, we could flip to domestic students, and that's been carried forward to the point where, rather than being more like 75-25, 75% international or 80% international, and the balance domestic students were closer to 50-50, maybe 60-40, with international students. So I think that's a real feather in everyone's cap, and just good business to be able to think about what would happen and then what would we do about that.
I agree. I also think it really feeds into the mission of the institution because you really you want to serve these students who are the internal program, and certainly they cannot commute. We know that,
Hmm.
but we also want to be able to service the students who are local, who are in that community that is supporting that institution. And so I think it's in some ways very nice that it's become this kind of 50-50 blend because it really serves both ends of the spectrum of the student population at that school. So
Yeah, absolutely. And international programs is appropriately a demanding customer for both of us, for both me from the standpoint of being the owner of campus housing, and and you folks over there doing the day-to-day management. And uh, and particularly Phil has gone to great lengths to make sure that that partnership and that connection is really strong. Him and Cindy, I think, really developed a close relationship over time. Cindy's retirement, sort of an institution at Green River College, and now she's gone on to retirement. And with Jeremy now coming together, you know, it's I think gratifying to say, okay, that relationship's in a very strong place, and now with Jeremy, their new personality, but we'll get that same type of strong partnership between Capstone and international programs. So again, feather in his cap for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that relationship is so crucial, both from the early days up to like there's a person in that role who's dedicated to kind of carrying Cindy's torch forward and keeping that relationship really strong and keeping CCA to be a great destination for the international student population. Can you talk about whether you feel like there are ways that the management partnership has helped the college move forward in their mission?
Well, critically, international programs could not have grown like it has without student housing. That would simply not have happened, and that has enabled a lot of things to be able to happen at Green River. We have the opportunity for our domestic students to be in a place where there's a strong international community as well. And I firmly believe that to be successful in the business world at this point, you really need to understand that it's a global marketplace, and you can do that at Green River because we have such a strong international programs, and that again that we would not be anywhere near um, being able to provide that kind of a kind of a live-in experience and connection to folks from 20 different countries. And I think is an advantage for our domestic students to get, and certainly an advantage for IP students to come here and understand how the United States works. So that's been huge. Um, this with the stability that comes with that IP population. It's allowed the college to do things and be in a financial position it wouldn't necessarily have been in otherwise. So it's I think
Yeah,
it's been huge, to be honest with you. If you kind of look at the student housing is sort of an enabler of transformation. I think that there was that decision to bring student housing in at a time where student housing and community college were that was not a thing, and we've had the opportunity again to again I think there's again just the mere presence of student housing has strengthened the college.
wonderful. Do you have any stories that you wanted to share that are interesting or funny about your interactions with COCM employees over the years?
um, I was thinking about that. It's I all of the folks and I think about, it's really interesting that with his with you and Corey. I don't know Becky as well yet, but that will come with time. And our GMs here on campus, I think about them a lot. How are they doing? What's what's going on in their lives? And uh, there's other folks on in Capstone where you can call folks up and he just sort of pick up right where he left off. So I think that's sort of again, there's not really an individual story, but it's just there's been consequential people here, and they they stick in my head. Every single one of them stick in my head as to they brought a different element of success to the project, and we've had good tenures with folks for long periods of time, so they're able to do significant work. Um, and again, I don't know. There's just been super people. There's not been one story, but I just here's the thing. Every single one of them has been a quality human, and that's been kind of cool.
That's great. That's great. Well, I know from the ones that I've spoken with and had personal relationships with that every single one of them really enjoyed their time at Green River College or is currently enjoying their time at Green River College, and really appreciated being hosted on the campus, and also really appreciated you joining us for this as well.
Well, it was a pleasure. Again, appreciate our partnership. There's no way this project would have survived through the pandemic without Capstone, the college, Washington Federal, and the foundation all working together to figure it out. And everyone went more than the extra mile to make sure that that project was financially viable. And again, with business background, you tend to default to that kind of conversation. But the reality is, the college needed Green River to have student housing. We had the conversation with Dr. Johnson and the staff and said, "Hey, boy, this is gonna be tough. We're not we have to figure out the way forward." And her first response was, "We have to have student housing on campus. It's got to be there." And you know, that was sort of the shot in the arm you just kind of needed. Said, okay, then let's sit down and figure this out. And by gum, we did. And again, that's I think if ever there was an opportunity to take a humble victory lap, it might be that. It's getting through the pandemic.
I think it's well deserved. Yes.
Exactly.